where you scream to watch that, watch this, and I'll dive down through this hairy flesh.
Hi and welcome to Watch This. I'm CJ Johnson. Thanks for joining me. In 2009, I spent one of the best years of my life studying directing at the Australian Film, Television and Radio School. As its name suggests, it is the National Film, Television and Radio School for Australia and kind of for the Southern Hemisphere. Now in 2009, it was kind of struggling with its identity well established as a filmmaking school, training us to make short films for a larger career making feature films and new media and digital media. So along with all the traditional skills associated with filmmaking, we were also taking classes in video games and computer graphics, along with classes in mise en scène and script writing. Now, in 2018, I'm joined on Watch This by two current students at the Australian Film, Television and Radio School. So they're going to bring a slightly more youthful perspective to the stuff that we're going to talk about. I'm joined by Christie Aucamp-Schutte and Adam Boys. Hi guys.
Hi CJ, thanks for having us.
Thank you very much for coming along. So how is the Australian Film, Television and Radio School dealing with the fact that everything is changing on a day-to-day basis in the sort of digital media film space?
I think they're dealing with it pretty well. They're always drumming that into us. They're like, you got to be on the ball. It's changing all the time. They always have people coming in and telling us how their lives have been, their whole companies have been shaken up. And so they're always drumming it into us, yeah. I've always got that in my mind.
So are you kind of being taught, trained, positioned to be jacks of all trades? Or?
Definitely.
To a degree. It's now a generalist bachelor program that we're a part of. And it is trying to arm yourself with the principles of all those categories: sound, image, story, screen business. And then towards the third year, you find your pathways, you start to specialise, and that's where I'm positioned right now in my last semester of my third year. Christie's in her second year.
Yes.
But there was a really fantastic opportunity that we were given in relation to the changing media landscape, where during our episodic semester, where we really looked at episodic storytelling, there was an opportunity to produce or to work on a original IP of a web reality show. And it was commissioned by afters to CJZ to write up a sort of a Bible for that. But we took that and adapted a little bit and took this dating show format for the web, really made it millennial focused and changed the sort of sexual angle on it and made it a bisexual dating show.
Oh, cool.
And it currently today has 450,000 views on YouTube for the whole series.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It's an amazing opportunity, and I was one of the creators, and I'm so proud of the work, and I'm so proud of the success that it's had. And Christie's year will now go into doing second season of it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I'm not working on it, but my friends are.
Yeah. So it's just a good opportunity. And so the school's trying to build that traffic for the YouTube and really look at that sort of web platform as a distribution angle for the school. It's one of the largest production houses in Australia.
Yeah.
It's producing short films and content every day.
Well, they don't call us filmmakers, they call us content creators. They like to say content creators
Really?
rather than filmmakers.
I mean, it's kind of the landscape. Video is so important now for every company and every business that they want to have students emerging into the market to be flexible in any industry, in the number of companies who can utilize all those skills and be employed. I think it's a good idea for us to make money when we leave our degree.
Do you still feel like a film school student, Christie, or do you feel more now like a content creating student?
Hard to say. No, I definitely feel like a filmmaker still. Definitely, because everyone wants to be a filmmaker. People don't want to be content creators. They want to be filmmakers. So no, I definitely still feel that. But they want to be realistic. They are realistic. They tell you, you're probably not going to be able to make features anytime soon. You're going to have to get into TV, web series, Well, not TV. No one's watching TV anymore, They're very realistic.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, let's get to talking about some things.
Sure.
We'll talk about all media spaces. We'll talk about a Netflix original documentary series. We'll talk about a feature film that's coming out in the cinemas by a very established feature filmmaker. And then we'll talk about a new feature film that is specifically to be released on on digital. So let's start with Dark Tourist. So this is a Netflix original, and it is hosted by a New Zealand guy named David Farrier.
Life can be dangerous when you're a dark tourist. My name is David Farrier, and I've always been drawn to the weirder side of life. So I've decided to investigate dark tourism, a global phenomenon where people choose to vacation in places associated with death and destruction.
He made a film called Tickled a few years ago that was my favourite film of its year that it came out. I was blown away by Tickled. This documentary about a vast world conspiracy of online tickling, endurance tickling, that of course didn't turn out to be an actual thing, because of course turned out to be something pretty dark. Did you guys see Tickled?
I did.
You both saw it?
Yeah.
Wasn't it incredible?
It felt like Scientology. It felt like the way Scientology manipulates people with this superior knowledge about them, and then Tickled was doing the same thing, just this form of control through this weird, weird angle.
Yeah, and it was partly the journey of that movie was watching David Farrier discovering as it went along, because he thought what he was investigating was one thing, which was just a perverse sexual thing, and it turned out to be so much more perverse and then so much more criminal than he had ever thought. And I mean, if you haven't seen that, it's totally worth seeing.
Watching his reactions was so good. Yeah, you really see him go, what's happening, you know?
Yeah, and along the course of it, he and his filmmaking partner, Dylan Reeves, became endangered. You know, there were periods during the course of that film, on camera, that you feel a dangerous sense for them. And I guess that's the spirit that has now fed into Farrier's new project, which is this one, Dark Tourist. So far, it is an 8 or 10 part series on Netflix. It's a Netflix original where he goes to different countries and gets involved in dark tourism.
Which is a growing fad, really, amongst tourists, which is to try and explore those odd or weird or dangerous aspects of other countries, as opposed to just lying on the beach or the resort.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know what to expect when I saw the phrase, and I guess it is, he goes on tours that have been designed for tourists to experience, as you say, not the beach and the sand. So, for example, in the first episode, which we've all seen, he goes to Latin America, and one of the first things he takes us on is
narco-tourism in Colombia.
Yeah, with Pablo Escobar.
Pablo Escobar and the barrio de Pablo Escobar,
Right.
and how the people celebrate him. And there's one of the big takeaways, not to give away too much, was one character kind of saying, like, you know, at the time when that narco-terrorism was happening, it was money or a bullet was the option. So it corrupted a lot of people because they wanted to be alive. But this one character says, well, you're dead now, Pablo, and I'm thriving off of your name. But at the same time, I'm grateful for you because I get to live. A lot of people now are so much more wealthy and successful
because of this tourism.
Because of this tourism.
And his name.
Yeah.
The town. And
the main character in that one that he meets is the hitman for Pablo Escobar.
The #1 hitman.
Who supposedly killed more than 250 people.
And including his girlfriend.
Yeah, and has spent 22 years in prison, and now...
He has a YouTube channel.
Now has a YouTube channel and is essentially a YouTube personality and gives tours and does crazy things. So what did you guys feel about that segment? Did you feel that that was of interest? How did it live up to Tickled for you?
Look, can I get my issues out of the way with Dark Tourist? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Look, we can't ignore the New Zealand Louis Theroux. He's
I know he does look like him, and he sounds like him a little bit.
And he trades on that persona as well. I feel like he's leaning into it. My issue with dark tourism and David Farrier is that I don't know what his actual position on things are. I feel like Louis gives a lot more of his actual position, but with David Farrier's voiceover, I think a lot more is masked in the narrative, and he's, you know, especially as we move on, I know you haven't seen Japan yet, but in the second episode as well, when he's talking about whether he believes in certain things, it happens in the first episode in Mexico with Santa Muerte, and he talks about, I don't know if I believe in this stuff, and I just don't know where his actual position on these things are. I think he's really playing a character. And so the series is fantastic. I loved it. I love the characters that he meets, and I love the experiences that he has. And it's a really great voyeurism of, I don't have to go to a radioactive site like Fukushima. I get to experience it through this show, and I think that's magical and wonderful. I'm not super into him as a host.
What about you, Christy?
I think I agree with you a little bit. I think we'll find, I think first episode, I'm going to cut him slack because I did feel that too. I felt he was being slightly melodramatic, but I think, I don't, maybe that wasn't him, maybe that was just sort of the whole sort of idea of it. They had to sort of reenact crossing the border as a Mexican immigrant. And he sort of kept sort of drumming in sort of that, oh, we know this isn't real, but it's quite scary. We're shaking now. And I was like, you've got a whole camera crew around you. This is a tour you've paid for. You're not shaking, man.
And he's also pushing buttons. Like he's kind of like Louis. He's pushing those buttons. He's throwing out things to force other people to react, and then going, oh, I feel really bad about what I said. And it's like, but you knew what you were doing. Right. So there's a bit of insincerity to it. Look, it's a hard job. It's a really hard job, and I think he's doing a very good job. Because I can see the strings. I'm just a little, my disbelief is not suspended.
I agree with both of you. I think, as I say, I think The Tickled is brilliant. But part of that brilliance of that film is that you're going along this journey with him and Dylan Reeves, his sort of co-presenter and co-director for that film. And so as they are finding out things, so are you, and as they're getting in danger, you feel for them, and it really is this journey. But in something like this, obviously he goes to 8 or 10 different places, different countries are in the world. So we've both seen episode 2, which is Japan, which is 3 more stories in Japan. And I would assume he shot the whole thing, and then they decided which was going to be episode 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So we can't assume it gets better as it goes along, because when you think about it, instead of 10 episodes, he has 30 sequences, he creates 10 episodes, and then he decides, well, we should start with this one, then Japan, it's structured that way. But it's all done, it's all in the can. So they have decided on a feeling, a vibe.
Yeah.
And my feeling about their vibe is that they're not telling us enough.
Yeah.
That I wanted to know much more about, for example, to me the jaw-dropping one was the busload of tourists that are going into heavily radiated parts of Japan.
7.87 or something on the guide.
And they're going to visit towns that are still heavily radiated. And I'm like, who the hell are these people that would choose to ever do this, who would pay money to go on a tour into a radiated town? And he doesn't interview them about that. I would turn to my neighbour and say, why are you doing this?
What is wrong with you?
Yeah, and that, without that question being asked, I'm kind of, it feels a bit ephemeral.
Tickled was this genuine journey you were on with him, whereas this is a little more constructed.
Yeah.
That's okay because it's for people who want to sit at home and watch Netflix and don't want to go on those trips, really. It's not a tourism show to add, it's not Getaway.
No, it's the opposite.
Exactly.
You wouldn't want to do any of these things, really.
So it is dramatised to a degree.
The other thing I think you both hit on, which I think is very much correct, is him establishing his voice. Because he was known in New Zealand, I guess, among certain people. Television personality in New Zealand, but on local New Zealand television. Like, as far as I know, not known outside of New Zealand. Then Tickled comes along and is a worldwide smash, but still for a very niche audience. We're still talking film festivals, we're still talking HBO. It's still a niche audience and just well-respected amongst a small amount of people. And here he is making a much bigger play. And because he doesn't have 20 minutes at the beginning, or has chosen not to, or Netflix has told him not to spend 20 minutes at the beginning of the first episode introducing himself, he has to arrive with a persona fully formed. And as you say, it's wishy-washy. It's not there. We don't know, who is this guy? Is he meant to be wacky? Is he meant to be cynical? Is he meant to be awkward? Is he meant to be intelligent, We've gotten to know Louis Theroux over the course of a decade or more, but we don't know David Farrier yet. And so at the moment, you're right, he's playing this kind of bumbling Louis Theroux wannabe. It's a shame.
To David Farrier's credit, he never undermines the people he speaks to. Not once, even if he is sceptical. Even when he thinks they're, you know, he doesn't agree with them, he puts it back on himself. Am I just not getting it? Maybe I don't feel it, but you guys do. Like, he's willing to just allow them to be. And I think that's one of the things I like about the show is all the characters that are presented don't feel exploited. They feel really respected, really well used. I think what you said was right. We don't meet the other tourists that much, but for all we know, he did interview them and they were crap.
Right.
They were shit subjects.
Yeah. How would you feel, Christy, if you hadn't seen Tickled? What would you think of his on-air persona?
Oh, I would think boring, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, it's not there yet, is it?
Not there yet. I think either, you know, take Louis Theroux. He's, you know, a bit strange, a bit awkward, and he really plays on this. That this guy has a bit more sort of warmth. You know, he's a lot more. He's got more warmth, and he's not so sort of different. You know, from the regular person I think out there.
Yeah.
So, but then he still has that little bit of Louis Theroux, a bit of, oh, you know, I'm just a weird, odd one out person here. I would have probably wanted a bit more warmth, a bit more interaction, a bit more sort of friendliness, because I thought it was sort of, it was neither here nor there. That's what I felt.
He'll find himself. I mean, I adore him because of Tickled, but I don't know if I was watching this series cold, whether or not I would.
I'm really excited to watch the rest of the series.
Me too.
I'm actually excited for his career. I do think he's got a great persona. The difference between him and Louis, though, Louis feels like a journalist, and he feels a lot more intelligent. I don't want to say this guy's not intelligent, but he does kind of some dumb things and kind of misses some cues sometimes. And I think I wonder if it's character or he just actually is a bit kind of a bit maybe not as smart as Louis. Like Louis is very intelligent, very well read, knows the facts and knows how to engage that way. His is more experiential. He's the Netflix Louis Theroux, he's not BBC.
I think he's
Netflix.
I think he's very smart, and I have had the opportunity to interview him, and I do think he's very smart, and I think he's got enormous potential. I suspect this season will probably be like 28 times better in season 2. You know, I think, you know, once he's into his 20th hour rather than his 10th hour of doing this thing, he'll be like, this is how much of me to put in, this is how snarky I should get, or how innocent I should get, or how funny I should get, or whatever. You know? Like, it's all summed up to me in one of the very first episodes, one of the very first bits, you know. I think it's interviewing that hardcore hitman, where he's wearing kind of this shirt that's appropriate and then these weird pink shorts. And it's just like, what's that saying? You know, why that choice? You know?
I think they're Dusty Rose. Not quite pink, you know. They're like fashionable. He's kind of hipster fashionable, you know.
But were they deliberate? Was he trying to be a bit funny with those shorts, or was he trying to be casual, or what? You know. Yeah. Or was he never intending them to be in shot? You know, how much are they thinking about everything that they're showing at the moment?
I think, you know, he's New Zealand, so it's kind of Flight of the Conchords. It's a Brooklyn look. It's a hipster. You know, it's like all these elements. I think Netflix is smart. I think their algorithms are smart. They know what people want to see. They know what to pull, and they're commercial giants.
Oh, I think this will be a big hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think he'll become a worldwide face pretty quickly.
Even if this doesn't get a second season, his next project, he'll do something else quite interesting. This is interesting. Yeah. There's nothing else like it. It's really interesting. We go to some incredible places and see some incredible things.
I was amazed that there were so many things I hadn't heard about.
It's like taking a weird holiday, some escapism, before going back to your normal, dull existence.
I sort of want to see what's going on, but I also don't want to be in the way.
I don't want you to be possessed.
Life is full of dangers. You know, that's the thing, right?
All right, let's move on to another dark. You guys have seen a movie that in early September is being released on digital platforms worldwide called In Darkness.
Correct.
I haven't seen this, but you guys have. So, Christy, tell us about In Darkness.
In Darkness. So it's about a blind pianist played by Natalie Dormer, and she gets caught up in her neighbour's suicide. This suicide is linked to Balkan War espionage, and so there's a lot of twists and turns along the way. And this woman, this blind pianist, isn't so removed from the whole thing as you initially think. There's a lot to uncover in this movie.
28-year-old Veronique Radic fell from her apartment building in what appears to be a suicide. Alleged war criminal officially identified his daughter's body.
Did you know Veronique well?
Sophia, please look after it for me.
She plays a blind pianist.
Correct.
Blind from the beginning of the film?
Yep.
Okay, well, it's a challenge to play blind. Natalie Dormer, I think, is known primarily, if not exclusively, to the world's audiences as
Marjorie Tyrell
on Game of Thrones. And she's fantastic in that, but it is not a role that shows range in the slightest. And this is obviously a tough role.
To me, she'll always be Anne Boleyn.
Oh, what's that
From
in?
The Tudors.
Right.
That's where she got a break.
Right, okay, so she was on the Tudors. So she looks good in a corset. She's known for period.
Right.
Here she is in the modern world. She's holding a coffee cup. She's blind. How does she do?
Oh, I think she's fantastic.
Okay, good.
No, straight off the bat, you can see it. And, you know, there's not much dialogue in here, and I thought it was a hard role to play, but she does it very well, very well. You can, very well.
And she's supported by the film and the script and the director that it creates that her routine and her blind world and her ability to connect with it and navigate it. It's all, you know, when the challenges arise, you see her navigate that internally and then try to exteriorize that. And so she's supported. It's not all on her, you know.
Right,
so it's very well. I think it's very well made.
So what is it? It's a modern British sort of low-budget psychological thriller?
I'd say, like, I guess we call it low now, but you know, it's good production value. It's a spy thriller, modern, and an unassuming protagonist and hero, or heroine,
So how is it?
I really liked it. I mean, it did fall into one script trope that threw me at the very end.
Yeah.
And it's almost like that one thing can just kind of make you go, oh, man, you had me. And then you just do this thing that undermines yourself. But I'll tell you what, ultimately, my reflection is the journey was very, very enjoyable.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Christy?
I enjoyed it. It's probably not my kind of movie. I don't think I'd watch it again. But then again, I was watching it on a laptop, and this is a very sort of, it's a whole sensory experience. So I really liked that part of it. I think it just was a bit slow for my liking. There were a lot of sort of silent, waiting, looking.
It's British.
You know. But that's just my personal opinion. I thought it was good, but probably not my favourite movie.
I'm very curious about, well, how all of these Game of Thrones actors are going to go out into the world after Game of Thrones has let them free. They've wrapped, you know, it's in the can, the final season, the final episodes. So they're all out and seeking, I assume, to establish big screen careers or careers in big series. And obviously she is going for these feature films. This one has not been released into cinemas. It is going direct to digital. How does this forebode, do you think? Do you think she's got a shot at getting really big?
I think so.
Yeah,
she's a great actor.
She's fantastic.
Right,
I mean, and this is probably just a really good modern film to showcase that she doesn't just have to do period things. And it's almost like she has to take that step back, maybe. I don't know if this is indie.
Yeah. I would say it's pretty indie. I mean, she's also the lead, if there is a lead, in the recent television remake, Australian television remake of Picnic at Hanging Rock.
That's right.
She plays the headmistress.
That's right.
Yeah, but that's another corset role. That's another period role. So I think you could be right. I think, you know,
not a massive
she
market.
might be very, very determined. She and her agent might be very, very determined to get her seen in contemporary clothes.
She kills it.
That's really good to know.
She does a very good job. Can I something else about the film that didn't surprise me, but I was happy to see was Emily Ratajkowski, who plays her neighbour, is fantastic in it. She's such a good actor.
Who's that?
Well, she was made famous by the Blurred Lines video, Robin Thicke's Blurred Lines video. She was one of the models in that, and you know there was a topless version of that film clip and a non-topless version. So she's been known to do nude modelling, and she's a model.
Right.
But she was in Gone Girl with she was the mistress in Gone Girl that Ben Affleck has an affair with.
Okay.
So again, she's known for kind of being quite sexualized, and she had a very small role, but she did really well in Gone Girl. But in this, she does the role really well. She does an accent.
Oh yeah.
And it's good.
What, because she's an American playing British, or does she?
Yeah, I guess she's American, and no, she's not playing British. She's playing they're Serbian.
Yeah. Okay.
Serbian.
Yeah. Look, she did great. Great supporting role for her as well, and I'm really happy just to see her get a bigger opportunity to act and kind of show, hey, I'm an actor. I'm not just a body. You know, which is typically what women can be relegated to.
Whatever game you think you're playing, you just stumbled into someone else's.
You don't have to do this.
And how does her blindness play into it then? Is it...
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, there's enough reveals at regular intervals that it's worth just giving it a watch. Okay. Yeah, I'm remiss to say too much on it.
Alrighty, that's In Darkness.
Yeah.
That's releasing on digital platforms around the world in September. Now, depending on where you are in the world, this coming week, Kkklansman with 3 Ks is releasing on cinemas worldwide. This is the new film from Spike Lee.
This is Ron Stallworth calling. Well, who am I speaking with?
This is David Duke.
Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. That David Duke?
God. Last time I checked. What can I do you for?
Well, since you asked, I hate blacks. I hate Jews, Mexicans, and Irish. Italians and Chinese. But my mouth to God's ears, I really hate those black rats.
You are about to get inundated with an awful lot of press about this film because it is a button-pushing film, but it is also undoubtedly, unequivocally, a return to form and a return to mass market form by Spike Lee. He has never stopped making films, but he's been making these quieter films that have been seen by niche audiences, and this film is definitely a mass market film. Christy, you haven't seen it yet.
No.
You will be seeing it, I'm sure.
Definitely.
Adam, you're chomping at the bit to talk about it. Obviously, you enjoyed this film.
It's in my top 5 immediately.
What, of all time?
Of all time.
Wow.
I mean, you know, that opinion may shift, but you know, a week or two later, I'm still keen on it. It is, as you said, return to form, but more than return to form, it's maturation. It's got the elements of Spike Lee that we love, but instead of just him doing them and saying, bugger it, I'm gonna do this odd style or form content. He's taken it and applied it to something broad, something that more people can appreciate, but still true to him, true to his voice and his vision.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, basically, I mean, everyone will know the setup because they really are promoting the heck out of this thing. But it's about a black cop in 1979. It's a true story. The true story of a black cop in 1979 who managed to infiltrate the Ku Klux Klan because on a phone call to a local Ku Klux Klan chapter leader, it was assumed he was white. And then when he actually had to show up for a meeting, this black cop got his white cop colleague to stand in for him. So essentially, 2 cops were undercover. One was the voice on the phone, this black cop, and one was the person in person, this white cop. Now, complicating things, the white cop is Jewish. And he only sort of discovers that the Ku Klux Klan doesn't like Jews either as he infiltrates them. And that's a very interesting journey too.
Really interesting. It's kind of like, it's almost like he just didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
He's as he says in the film, he says, I grew up white. I've never had to really be confronted with being Jewish until he's confronted with people who hate him or who hate Jewish people, and he has to really work out. And that is such a nuance to this film. It's so beautiful.
Totally.
It's not just about this character here and his very obvious journey as a black person infiltrating the Ku Klux Klan. No, there's this really nuanced performance by Adam Driver, who plays the white colleague. And it's amazing. And we must mention this is John David Washington, the son of Denzel Washington.
John David Washington, who plays the lead, who is an actor totally unknown to me before this film. He's Denzel Washington's son. Now, of course, Spike Lee directed Denzel Washington, his father, in Malcolm X.
Exactly.
And so here he is directing his son.
And he was in Malcolm X. He was in Malcolm X as a sort of extra student. Yeah. So
which was probably because his dad brought him to set.
Of course.
Spike Lee was
so he's probably known Spike Lee a long time. And Spike Lee's been waiting till he was at a level where he could give him a star vehicle, basically.
The thing about this film, and I think I agree with you, I think it's quite remarkable, is that it is about the KKK, it's about race in America, it's about racial hatred, but it is always funny. And it reminded me that Spike Lee has been doing this since the beginning. I mean, way back to Do the Right Thing, he has always managed to make these films about race and racial hatred in America as comedies. You know, he's been making these accessible films that are incredibly politically charged, and that's what this is. And people go like, wow, he's managed to make this film about race so accessible and funny, but he's always been doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even 25th Hour, which I guess is probably one of the least funny things he's made.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah, still that scene, which is all about race, that big monologue about race, is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really satirized versions of these stereotypes in New York. It's just so interesting, right? I think it's because he's willing to say it, or he's willing to go to places with that. But like I said, it's almost in those films, it's a little bit of an immature voice when dealing with the topic. Because this feels researched. Yeah. This feels like he's looked at it from so many angles, and especially the angle of his audience, and really found a way to infiltrate you as an audience. I mean, that's the beauty of it. He's infiltrating you as an audience member to make you really feel that experience.
Yeah.
I'll admit, I bawled my eyes out by the end. I don't know if you had that feeling, but I don't want to give anything away, but I was crying.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he does relate the film at the end to current goings-on. I think a lot of people will know how he does that because they're not hiding that in the press materials. But it's very well done. It's incredibly well done. There's no reason you wouldn't do it. And also, I think I was educated a lot on, as you say, subtle, nuanced elements of the KKK, etc. Like Adam Driver's character, I learnt a lot about their equal opportunity hatred for Jewish people as well as black people and other minorities, which was really interesting. Yep. And also, I think he very deftly shows you the quote-unquote charm of these people. Like one of the major characters is David Dukes, who's the head of the KKK and has been for decades. And I mean, his stated goal was to run for president. He never made it. He got as high as some seat somewhere in the United States system. But his goal was to try and achieve high political office. And his way of doing that was to be relentlessly charming, even while he is obviously and unashamedly an absolute bigot. And it shows you his charm, and that is one of the sneaky ways the film exposes the KKK's sneaky ways.
Yeah, played by Topher Grace.
Played by Topher Grace, who said that he would have only done this when asked by Spike Lee.
Exactly.
You know, he was like, it's not like I was dying to play like the world's worst racist, you know?
Isn't that so interesting?
Yeah. Until the end, in a way, it's not saying too much we don't know. And it is a romp. I mean, it is a romp. It's not so beautiful. It's not harrowing, except for perhaps the end and the way that Spike Lee ties it to our modern political situation. It's a fun, enjoyable movie about serious matters, but it's also about a wonderful way that we got one up on the bad guys.
And he kills it.
Yeah.
As the lead, he carries this film so well, and he is. What's brilliant, he's the Alice in Wonderland too, because it's almost like the status quo is happening, and he's the first black cop in his county, whatever, the first black guy to join the force. It goes against all the black people in the film. They hate police, and he has to kind of keep that hidden from this love interest, played by, I want to say, Laura Harrier, who was the love interest in Spider-Man Homecoming. Yeah. So it's a nice maturation for her as well to shift from that sort of Marvel teen role into this sort of really powerful. And that's the other thing, man. He has matured the way he's always been good with women, but I think his Netflix show, Spike Lee's Netflix show,
She's Got to Have It.
She's Got to Have It. Based on his first film, has allowed him to really mature his voice for women. And I think, I think he kills it with that role in this film. Yeah.
You're Jewish. That hatred, doesn't that piss you off?
You're taking this Jew lie detector test.
Why are you acting like you ain't got skin in the game?
I'm telling you, the wars are coming.
Black power! Black power!
Knights of the Kkklansman.
That's us, Stallworth brothers.
Well, that is Kkklansman. Obviously, Adam and I think it's very much something you should watch. You guys, would you recommend watching In Darkness? There's so much stuff to watch. Would you say yes, or would you say only if, or...?
Well, only if you want to watch a really well-made British thriller about sort of an espionage angle with a different sort of heroine that you've not seen before.
What about
like
you, Christy?
history.
Would you say watch this about In Darkness?
Not my thing, probably, but that's probably my attention span. Too much technology, so that's about me.
And what about Dark Tourist? There's a lot out there. If you've only got a couple of weeks this week to spend on documentary.
Definitely, I think. Just when you think that, oh my God, they've just shown everything, all the crazy stuff, and you know, we've all seen it, but no, you haven't. I think definitely Dark Tourist for me. That's
what about you for Dark Tourist?
Yeah, if you want to watch a documentary series that isn't a true crime story, if you're sick of that, Dark Tourist hits it. It's beautifully shot. It's a travel show, but then it's got this awesome unseen angle to it. Yeah, it's really great.
You've been watching Watch This. Take care. I'm CJ Johnson.